Yeah.
In terms of what we plant, how we plant it, when we plant it, when we harvest it, and so moving in that direction is going to be better for the environment. It is the discussion of the time. So the first question that I'd like to pose, I think Max, you can take this one. What can cultivators do differently in a drought year? And of course, the larger question, why is this important?
Well, and in such a short time, it's such a big question. It's been a real challenge, I have to say. So, but from someone who's been teaching and passionately working with many clients, farms, landscapes, land restoration projects, and then living and working the same piece of land myself for 20 years, I can tell you that it always starts with earthworks. How can I capture and change the way I manage soil on my site? I mean, I manage water on my site. So the new modern human approach is to create runoff, right? Run the water off the landscape, away from our precious foundations, out into drainage ditches, drainage channels, and out into the rivers, lakes, and oceans. We need to capture and hold that precious resource on our landscapes and let it slowly percolate into the soil. But I really don't have time to talk too much more about that. Just look into permaculture-based earthworks, and that's always a good place to start on where to save water, because you become your own water bank account. You can use the soil like a bank account. Just make sure you always deposit more than when you withdraw. And then you're a truly regenerative farm, right? Well, if you have those slides, I can show you something else I'd like to share. It's a little easier to get started with, and it has incredible results. So what are we here to learn all my approaches to growing and farming and any scale, by the way. I've done this on scale of large farms to the 6 plants I do in my backyard. So you can do this on any scale. Are we here to learn all about my impressive approaches? No, we're here to learn from nature. I want everybody to learn together from nature. So we learn from the Hindu Kush Valley, the birthplace of the cannabis plant, right? So how do these water systems work? Do they work from irrigating from above the soil and intricate drip irrigation systems? Do they have consistent rain? No, we need to learn about this ecosystem and see if we can replicate it in our own gardens and farms. So we learned that it works very much in a slow, steady flow of water through glacier melts. It has wet, cold periods, just like we in Northern California have wet, cold periods. But very quickly, the only water that marijuana plant is taking, that cannabis plant is taking, is from the subsoil. It's learned and evolved a very specific 2-stage or dual root zone system. So how do we replicate that dual root zone in our own garden? Well, one way we can do it is, I'm not here to talk about a bunch of challenges about using too much plastic. I'm talking about using available resources and the modern technology in ways that the small impact in the beginning creates greater benefit in the future. You follow me on that? So if we have to use a little bit of plastic to stop evaporation and to stop losing water to gravity and away from the soil, then sometimes it's appropriate to do that. But making sure you use a high-grade recyclable plastic or plastic that breaks down into components that are non-toxic. But what we're trying to do is create a zone that's very typical seen in temperate climates and soils. And what we want to do is we want to feed the plant from the bottom. I know this is hard for a lot of you to understand. You're like, I'm going to create root rot. I'm going to rot my plants. But really, we want to irrigate our plants from the bottom. And if we create a container and get out of a geopot, for example, and get into a grow bin, a sub-irrigated planter or a wicking bed as they're called, then we irrigate from the bottom and the plant only takes up the water it needs, and the rest is stored there and it's not lost to gravity in the soil. So, I don't have much time to share and go into these great details, but there's many ways that water's lost in the soil. It's lost in gravity, it's lost in capillary effect, pulling it soil particle by soil particle out of the reach of the roots. Well, in this system, in a closed system like this, the water's always where it's accessible to the roots and you're losing a lot less. And then of course it can be scaled up and you can do large scale farms and you can just dig channels in the soil, lay out a food grade pond liner, something that's going to last for 40 or 50 years. And then you can fill it back in with your soil and you can create a wicking bed that way as well. So I've done this, and believe it or not, I'm saving 75% of the water I was using when I was growing in. 75%. 75% of the water. Because all that water is kept there near the plant where it is. So anyhow, if you guys want to talk more about green your grow, I don't have much time on this beautiful panel of very experienced individuals. So I'm over here in the Hall of Flowers in the end, and I'm all weighted down to talk regenerative farming, and there's many other ways that we can save water in our gardens. All right, thanks everyone.
Great, thanks, Mel.